Hey, it's Tom, and today we're going to talk about genetic algorithms. In the beginning of this video, I will quickly explain you what is genetic algorithm, what are the most common use cases, and all the basics you should know to understand how it's working. In the second part, we'll switch into Xcode, and I will show you simple implementation written in Swift of one of the most popular problems which are being solved using genetic algorithms. It's called traveling salesman problem. Okay, so let's switch into the simple presentation I just prepared for you. What is genetic algorithm? So in general, it's a search heuristic inspired by the process of natural selection. So this kind of heuristic is a very efficient tool to provide usable, not perfect solutions for problems in a big space of solutions in a relatively short period of time. So to describe the individual or chromosome, we use an array of genes, just like we are being described by our DNA. Okay, so let's start with basic terminology. As I mentioned, we have our population, which is being presented in bottom right corner. So the population is a collection of all individuals or chromosomes. We can use this statement as you prefer. I will stick to chromosome because it will be just easier to stick to one. So the population is a collection of all chromosomes that we are using to find a solution for our problem. And the chromosome is an array of values. They don't have to be numeric values. You can use any kind of values that you want. They can be characters, numbers, even booleans that are describing some particular feature. And each element of this array is called gene, because just like in our DNA, each gene is responsible for some feature like our length of our hand or shape of our eye, and so on and so on. So we have whole population which contains all chromosomes, and each chromosome is an array of genes. And in general, gene is a place where you store a value, and this particular value is called allele. The allele is one of the possible values. Just like I mentioned before, it can be character, it can be number, it can be Boolean value, or any other type of representation which is being useful for you. Okay, I don't want to go into too much details because that's not needed right now. And as I mentioned, genetic algorithms are based on our natural selection and natural process of evolution described by Darwin. So in the beginning, we start with population initialization. So we create our population of chromosomes, and we can use a random function to assume some values to particular genes, or we can use some well-known heuristic for a particular problem to not start from a random place, but from a place which is usually closer to the good solution. Then we have fitness function calculation. So we check how good is particular chromosome. So is this solution which is being described within this chromosome is better than others, and how good it is. Then we have crossover. So we choose parents and they produce offspring. Then there is a process of mutation, because when we would just stick to crossover, then we would only have a mixes of solutions that were being used when we were creating the population initially. And mutation, just like in a process of offspring production for humans, I'm a father, so I know something about that. Mutation is causing that the offspring is a little bit different than their parents. So it's not strict combination of mother and father, but it's a little bit different. So like us, each human being is different than his or her parents. And then we select survivors. So we select which chromosomes should be used for parents for next generation. And this process is running in a loop. And the criteria to stop this loop are being chosen by us. So we have to define if we just want to run that for, I don't know, maybe 100 times, 1000 times, or maybe we will loop this process as long as we will get a result that's good enough for us. And then when this process is finishing, we're just choosing the best individual or chromosome in our case, and this is the best solution for the problem that we were able to find. Okay, so what is population? Population is a collection of all chromosomes, as I mentioned, and there are two ways to create population. The random initialization, so each chromosome is being filled with the random values that we are using, or we are using just some heuristic, which is widely known as a good solution for a problem. So we are starting not from a random place, but from a place which is usually much closer to the good solution. And because of that, the process of finding a solution will be much easier and faster. What is fitness function? So, for example, if we will talk about the knapsack problem, so we have a knapsack which has capacity of like 15 kilograms, and we want to store as many items with the highest possible value as possible. So in this case, our second row is our solution, and we used binary values. So 1 means that we're taking this thing, and 0 means that we are not taking this thing. The first row shows us the item index, and the third one shows us the weight of items, because as I mentioned, we only keep 15 kilograms. And the last row is a value, and we want to maximize the value of items that we are keeping in this knapsack. So our solution shows us that we are taking items with weight 1 kilogram, 2 kilogram, 4 kilogram, and 1. So that gives us 8 kilograms. And the summary value is 15. And then we can compare that with different chromosomes and choose the one that's providing us the best possible solution. Okay, the next part is parent selection. So to create an offspring, we have to choose parents. We have to choose chromosomes that we will use to cross over them and to create offspring. So there are many ways to do that. The two of the most popular ones are Roulette. So the better the parent is, the higher is the chance of choosing him. So we create some kind of roulette wheel, and the bigger is the value. The better is the fitness function. So the better is the solution provided by chromosome, the bigger field is taken by this parent. And then we randomly choose some field on this roulette, just like in casino. So the better is the solution, the bigger is the chance. The second most popular solution is tournament. So we are randomly picking couple chromosomes, and then we are using tournament to choose the best from those picked. So for example, we have a population of 100 chromosomes, then we select 3 or 5 of them, and then we just pick the best from them. We can also use a tournament that's picking each two parents, making a pair from them, then choosing a winner, and then so on. just like in a World Cup. Okay, the next thing is a crossover. So there are many ways to do this crossover, and in our problem in Swift I will show you that not in each problem it's possible to do some simple way of crossing over the parents. So the first one is the one-point crossover. So we just choose randomly one place within the chromosome, and we split both parents in the same place, and we just exchange the parts which are further in a row of this array between those parents. We can also use multi-point crossover, so we can randomly select, for example, k places, and then just switch those parts of chromosomes between parents. And there is also a uniform crossover, so each gene is being treated randomly, and we are just randomly deciding whether we are choosing a chromosome gene from parent A or parent B, and that's going through the whole array. Okay, and then, as I mentioned, mutation process, which is allowing us to find some new solutions within the whole space, because just crossing over parents causes that we are sticked into the space of the solutions that we found initially. So there's a random switch, so we're just picking one place and we are just switching the value, the allele of the gene to another one. In our case, it's a binary description, so we are just switching from 1 to 0, but if that will be character, then you can just randomly find another character to put into this place. There is a swap mutation, so we are randomly picking two places and we are just switching genes between those two places, and this is the mutation that we'll be using in traveling salesman problem. And there is also a scramble mutation, so we are just selecting randomly some sub-array from the whole chromosome, and then we are shuffling the values in this sub-array and putting back again into the same place. Of course, if the solution for the problem allows us to do this kind of thing. And then there is a survivor selection, so we can choose the politic to replace all chromosomes. So when we choose one generation and we choose parents, we do a crossover mutation, and the whole new generation will be created only by offspring from the previous generation. There's also some other ways to do this. There's an age-based selection. So each time we, for example, replace couple oldest members of the population, and they are just being replaced by the offspring. There's also a fitness-based selection. So we just compare the previous generation and the new generation, and we choose a number of members for the new generation from the fittest new generation and fittest members of the old generation. So there is a mix of the solutions. There's also one more solution that I used in traveling salesman problem, which is named elite. So before we create an offspring, we sort the chromosomes by their fitness function, and we establish some kind of elite. So the chromosomes that will be moved from the previous generation to the new one without any mutation, they of course can be used as a parents, but we guarantee that they will be also in the same form in new generation. That's a pretty good solution to always keep the currently best possible solution. So we just sort all chromosomes, we pick a couple best ones or even one best current solution, and move to the next generation and allow others to mutate, to crossover, and to try to find new solution without losing current progress. And there is, of course, as I mentioned, termination condition. So we can stop the whole process when the process is converging. So we are not seeing any significant progress when we establish just a limit number of generations, or as I mentioned, when the problem is good enough for us. So popular applications for this kind of algorithms is container loading. So we are trying to quickly find best solution to put containers on the boat, because it's important to also put them in an order that allows us to quickly take them in the final port, to quickly take them from the ship in the final port in some particular order. To design electronic circuits to just save some copper and time, and for production planning and engineering design, because the space of possible solutions in these problems, both problems, is huge. In all problems, it's huge. It's impossible to check all the possible solutions. So trying to find a good enough solution is very efficient. Okay, so that was quick introduction into the genetic algorithms. Now let's switch into the code.